Fundamentalist Mormons are known for promoting an alternative marriage practice in polygamy. Of course, there are gay marriage advocates who support that as well. In this next episode, we'll talk a little bit about Cody Brown's oldest daughter. Cody is a polygamist from the TV show Sister Wives, and he has 4 wives. One of his oldest daughters has actually announced that she is gay. What do fundamentalist Mormons think about gay relationships? I hope you'll check out our conversation. But before we do that, I just want to mention we've got some of our books for sale still. We've got these with Mark Hoffman and Shannon Flynn. We've also got Brian Hales and his talk about polygamy. So please check out those books. They're available at Amazon.com. That will really help support the website, and I'd like to put forth some documentaries, including one on polygamy. We've got a lot of different perspectives, as well as even Jim Van Cannon, who thinks that Joseph Smith was a monogamist. So please purchase those and help us support Gospel Tangents. Now back to our conversation. I know that a lot of people, and I'm sure there's as many opinions as there are fundamentalists, but
you're just about right.
So, and it seems like if I remember the show right, they did talk a little bit about gay marriage in one of the episodes.
Well, one of the daughters is gay.
Well, this is before that.
Oh.
So the one episode that I remember was that they were talking about whether gay marriage should be legal, and as I recall, Cody was sitting around with his wives, and they're like, "Yeah, consenting adults, they should be allowed to do whatever they want. It should be legal." I would suspect, and we'll talk about the FLDS Church here in a minute, some of the other groups would find that policy or that heretical.
I cannot speak for a group as a whole, but the fundamentalists that I know, I don't think have any problem with legal gay marriage. That's not a religious sealing. That's a personal choice. And if we expect to have the country look at our marriages as at least decriminalize them, then we have to be willing to grant others their free agency in forming a family and in who they marry. This has been a big issue with us. We have the ones that I associate with the most don't think there's anything wrong with a legal gay marriage, because like I say, it's not a religious thing, and they should have that legal right. We're talking about a civil rights level. They should have their civil rights just like we would like our civil rights. Now, we feel like we already have the consent of the Lord, because this is His ordinance, this is His marriage style, and He's already indicated that that's an eternal principle. So religiously, we feel like we already have the right to live plural marriage, celestial plural marriage. But we don't have the civil right, which is, it's backwards to me. So I feel like that both gays and polygamists should have the civil right to have a marriage of their choosing.
Okay.
And what was ironic is that people used to tell us years ago, oh, if the gays get their legal rights to marriage, it's a slippery slope. Pretty soon the polygamists will. Well, you know how that turned around? In December of 2013, it was December 13th, I think, of December 13th, in the Waddups decision, Waddups he decriminalized plural marriage. We were excited. And a week after that, the Supreme Court gave the gays the legal right to have their marriage. So really, ours came first. However...
Now let's talk about that. So you're talking about this Waddups case. This was here in Utah, or was that
that was Utah. That was Utah. And it was appealed by the Attorney General, Sean Reyes. And it took a while for the appeal to go to Denver, to the 10th Circuit Court. And then it took a while for them to decide, and then they upheld they overturned Waddups' decision. So it's right back to where it was. Okay. So it's now, in the state of Utah, it's not only illegal, it's a felony. And it's one of the only states in the United States where it is a felony. And they might call it cohabitation or polygamy or whatever they call it. It's the same thing. Okay. So, yeah, if we are arrested and taken to court, we can be charged with a felony in Utah.
So I know Mark Shurtleff, and he's not the Attorney General anymore, but he basically had the policy that, look, if you're not breaking any other laws,
Right.
I'm going to look the other way. Sean Reyes, I believe, is the new Attorney General. Does he have a similar policy, or?
Yeah, I think basically, but he still couldn't let that go. I can't second guess Mark Shurtleff. I question whether or not he would have appealed it. Because a lot of us knew him. He called us in for meetings and things so he could understand our culture better. Sean has not done that. So I think he just felt like, he's trying to save the reputation of the Attorney General's office. He couldn't allow that law to stand without an appeal, and then it was overturned.
Okay, so in federal court it was basically recriminalized.
District Court in Denver, they upheld the appeal.
That's a federal court, though, right?
Well, it was a federal district court.
Federal district court. Okay. So has that been appealed to the Supreme Court or anything, or is that still? No.
Well, now wait, I take that back. We did appeal. Our people, did appeal it to the Supreme Court, but they refused to hear it because they didn't think there was enough evidence to make a change from the 10th Circuit Court. So in other words, if they refuse to hear it, that means they uphold the district court's decision.
Right. So essentially the Utah law is now unchanged.
Right.
Okay.
Back to where it was.
Okay.
In 1935 it was made a felony.
Okay.
And that's a state law.
That's a state law, and so the state law has been upheld.
Well, really what was upheld was the bigamy statute, which has two prongs to it. It has the cohabitation prong and the purporting to be married. Well, we don't really go run around purporting to be married, and we don't have a legal marriage license with more than one wife. So we don't really feel like we're purporting to be married. But that prong was upheld. The cohabitation was done away with by WADEPS because there are a lot of people that cohabit that aren't married. And so if you were going to really enforce that, you'd have a lot of trouble going around finding all the cohabiting people. So anyway, we felt like that virtually was, in essence, decriminalizing it, which it was.
Okay.
But then it leaves you, and this is really complicated. Okay, you still got the 1935 felony law on the books, and you've got the state constitution saying polygamy shall forever be prohibited. So how does this WADEPS decision go along with these two? See, it's confusing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's jump back to the issue. Now I know the LDS Church, they in November 2015 had a decision, or not a decision. They issued a thing in the handbook that said that we're not going to baptize children of gay parents anymore, and
until they're 18.
Until they're 18. One of the things that they've cited as, well, this is how we've always treated polygamists, so therefore how we treat children of gays is consistent. What do you think of that policy?
I was very disappointed in that decision, and for many reasons. I'll just give you one example. I worked at a bookstore. The day after that decision was made, somebody came into the bookstore and said, there's a young girl, 8 years old, in our ward. She is living in a home with gay parents, and they will not let, and she's scheduled to be baptized Saturday, and they will not let her be baptized. That breaks my heart. It does, because all her friends, in the primary class, they're all going to be baptized. How do you explain to her that she can't be baptized? I mean, that's just one of many situations that came up. I just felt bad about it. Mm-hmm. You're punishing the children for what I don't even think is a civil sin of the parents. Yeah. And the parents wanted her to be a member of the church. They wanted her to go to primary. They took her to church.
I think I remember reading about that in the paper. So,
So anyway,
probably a few
that's
stories
just
like
one
that.
of many, but I was disappointed in the overall decision that they made.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Ann Wild. Since we're on the topic of gay relationships, and since November is the anniversary, for lack of a better word, of the November exclusion policy, I thought it would be interesting to introduce Greg Prince on this topic. He recently visited Salt Lake City and is writing a new book on the history of gay relationships in the LDS Church. He notes there have been some ups and downs with the LDS Church in regards to gay relationships.
In 1995, the legislature, with a big public push from the church, otherwise it couldn't have happened, passed Senate Bill 296, which forbade by law discrimination against LGBT people in the areas of employment and housing. That was a big step forward, because Utah still is the only state whose legislature and gubernatorial chair are occupied by Republicans that has passed that kind of legislation.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But then, later that year, the church came out with the policy. And so it was another low point. And we just seem to be in this cycle of step forward, a step back, and the LGBT population in particular, since they are the ones who are most affected by these things, is wondering, are we really moving forward, or are we just kind of being batted back and forth?
Click here to subscribe, click here for a transcript, and over here you'll see some other videos that we've done here on YouTube. We hope you'll use this as a valuable resource to learn more about Mormon history.